The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to Training Camp Confidential, training camp with the Washington Commanders. Day number 11 of training camp was a big one. Joint practice with the New York Jets ahead of their first preseason tilt of the season on Saturday at noon at MetLife Stadium versus the Jets. So this was sort of a precursor to the game on Saturday. And head coach Dan Quinn talked about kind of the inverse of what would happen. Guys that got a lot of reps in practice wouldn't get as many in the game. Guys that didn't get as many practice reps would play a lot more in the game. So we kind of knew you're going to see a lot of the first and second team offense, a lot of the first and second team defense, but mostly the first team. You want to give them as many reps here because they're not going to play a lot in the game on Saturday. Really, really tough conditions on the day. And so we kind of knew that, and I talked about this yesterday on the stream, that, you know, it wasn't an ideal situation with the weather being what it is, the tropical storm that was kind of coming through the East Coast. And the timing couldn't have been any worse, right? At the end of the day, there were no casualties, which is the best news. And you take everything in stride. This is a process, right? And some of you are in mid-season form, right? Mid-season form for some of you. I had one person tell me, well, it's going to be a long season, Louie. We're getting destroyed at the joint practice against the Jets. It's going to be a long season. Like, relax. It's one practice. We're fine, right? Like, all that was missing was JP saying, fire everybody. Fire everybody. So, RELAX, relax. All right. A lot of this was predictable because I think I said this at the very end of the preview for the joint practice. We don't even know if Brandon Coleman is practicing. Brandon Coleman didn't practice. We don't know if Andrew Wiley's practicing. Andrew Wiley didn't practice. We don't know if Sam Cosmi is going to practice. He didn't practice. Cosmi and Wiley both took part in indie drills. They did not do any team drills today. So it was that offensive line that I said, if this group is out there, what do you think is going to happen against the Jets defense? Like, seriously, if your starting offensive line is Cornelius Lucas, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, Michael Dieter, and Trent Scott, what do you think is going to happen up front? Okay, so let's talk about this practice. I got everything you need right here, and we're going to react to it and discuss it. So essentially, today's practice took place in a monsoon. It was steady downpour of showers. Here's the good thing. Here's the good news here. It's going to rain today. It's going to rain tomorrow. By Saturday at noon, it's going to be sunny and 85 degrees. Okay, so at least the game, we will get to see Jaden Daniels, whether he's playing against the Jets' first team defense or not. I don't care. We'll get to see him and the rest of the first team offense. And I'm going to assume, and I probably shouldn't do this, but I'm going to assume that we're going to see the entire starting offensive line in the preseason game, which is why they held all those guys out. It was nasty conditions. It was wet. I think Brandon Coleman is sick. I think he caught whatever Sam Cosmi had. That's my guess. I don't know. We haven't gotten an update because they don't have to give those in the preseason, right? So my guess is Coleman is being held out due to illness, right? He had on a helmet and he had on shorts and a jersey, but he did not have on pads. And he did nothing today, right? So my guess is he's probably a little bit under the weather. That's my guess. Cosmi was out there in full pads. Again, he went through indie drills, didn't do the team drills. Same with Andrew Wiley. My guess is all 5 of our offensive linemen will be out there on Saturday. That's my guess. I could be wrong. We'll see. And I'm going to give you a separate video because we heard from Dan Quinn today. We're supposed to get Terry and maybe a player or two after practice. I saw a number of guys, in media scrums. Mike Sainristil, Cornelius Lucas, Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Allen, all were a part of different media scrums. I don't know if we'll get those in a formal setting or not. If so, I'll come back and we'll discuss what was said on a separate video. If not, then we just won't worry about it, right? So, as I mentioned, practice took place in a monsoon today. I mean, what can you do? It is what it is. And so it was funny. I tweeted out earlier this morning because I saw what the weather was and I understood that it was probably going to be a rough go of it today. And a lot of people were hoping that they would go inside. I tweeted that out, and Rio, responded to my tweet saying, you think they'll go inside, practice inside? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Football is a sport that is generally played outside unless your team plays in a dome. Football's played outside in the elements. And most oftentimes, unless there are thunderstorms, teams don't go inside to practice. If it's raining outside, you deal with the elements, because if you're playing in an actual game and it's raining outside, they don't say, hey, it's raining, let's go inside and play the rest of this game. You're playing in the elements. So generally, teams don't like to go inside and practice in the bubble unless it's thundering outside and they have to. All right. Or it's just so bad outside that you can't get good work in. Had this been in Washington, they probably would have had to go inside because they don't have a great practice situation outside, right? Like the Jets have a state-of-the-art facility. They've got drainage systems. So even on the practice field, it's not soaking wet. They would have been playing in mud back at, Landover, right? Or back in, I think I said that right. I think the facility is back in, is it in Landover? Wherever the hell the practice facility is. I think it is in Landover. But whatever the case may be, they didn't go inside. And I didn't think they were going to go inside. So no Aaron Rodgers. No problem for much of the practice for Tyrod Taylor, who has carved us up in the past as a New York Giant. So that's not a problem. No Brandon Coleman. No Sam Cosmi. No Andrew Wiley. No Johnny Newton. Okay. So a number of guys missing in practice today. Just for those of you who were like myself, kind of all over the place looking for any information you could get, the Jets put out a practice video, right? The feed from the very beginning of practice. It was trash, as I expected, which is why I said I'm going to be relying on the beat reporters that are in attendance more so than any coverage that the Jets give us, because I learned from last year with the Ravens. It was an awful production. And look, you have to also take this into consideration. They're not going to show most of practice because they're not supposed to show the 11-on-11 work. So you're not going to see a lot of that. You'll see some of the 7-on-7. You'll see some of the indie drills, but they're not permitted to show you 11-on-11 work. So you weren't going to get that much, right? And half of the damn time, 2/3 of the time, they got the guys in the studio talking instead of showing us what's going on out on the field. So you really can't get a sense of what's happening. So that was a waste of time. So moving forward, when there's a joint practice, don't waste your time going on some team's website or some team's YouTube channel to go get information, because all you're going to really see are 3 guys in a studio running their mouth, flapping their gums. You're not going to see anything on the field. So don't waste your time. And just a little PSA moving forward. So to start practice, reportedly the ball was hitting the ground versus air to start. That was an omen, right? That was a bad sign for a team that had been pretty good at completing passes, especially versus air when there are no defenders. To hear that the ball was hitting the ground quite a bit in indie drills should have told you that this is not going to go really well, right? And then when you couple in 3/5 of the offensive line is out, yeah, this is going to be a little rough, right? Again, it was really nasty out. So the defense struggled early. Deep shots to Garrett Wilson over both Benjamin St-Juste. We got to see that one. If you were watching the Jets trash coverage, we did get to see Benjamin St-Juste get cooked with Percy Butler trailing on the play as well by Garrett Wilson, and he got beat by about 3 yards over the top. Okay, Garrett Wilson is that dude, so I'm not tripping about it, but you hate to see it, but it's Garrett Wilson, right? Forbes got beat for a deep ball touchdown. Both were in 7-on-7s. So it is what it is, right? 7-on-7 is 7-on-7, right? There's really no pass rush. And so the quarterback gets to drop back, look down the field and deliver the football without any pressure. Jaden wasn't too shabby in 7-on-7 himself. He had a strike. We got to see that to Zach Ertz, the very first play of 7-on-7s. He steps up, Ertz runs a post, and he throws a dart right to Ertz, snatches it, gets up the field. Easy work. He also hit a deep ball to De'Ami Brown, who brought it in with one hand. Great catch by De'Ami. So in 7-on-7s, Jaden didn't look too bad. Bryson Tremaine, I must make mention of this, continues to show out, had 2 big grabs during the 7-on-7 period. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Bryson Tremaine a little bit later on. I'm going to tell you right now, there was some shit talking going on when Garrett Wilson caught that first deep ball over Juice. He was talking cash money. Boy, he caught that bitch and he turned around and he was like, I told you couldn't guard me. Y'all sorry, right? He was talking shit. So there was one little brouhaha, one little scrap. It was minor. They squashed. It was too wet to be getting physical. If it had been hot, that would have been a different story. But it was a little too wet out there for dudes to be really trying to get into some shit. You really just want to get this practice over with and get inside, right? So then the 11-on-11s came, and this is where the real action took place, right? The offense went to shit when we got to 11-on-11s, for the most part. You can understand why. This is your offensive line, left to right: Cornelius Lucas, Nick Allegretti, Tyler Biadasz, Michael Dieter, and Trenton Scott. If that's your offensive line, if that's your starting group, you're in trouble. Lots and lots of trouble, okay? We talked about this yesterday. I talked about this 2 days ago after day 10 of camp, when it was an uneven day for the offense because the defense dominated the offense because up front they could not protect and they couldn't open up consistent holes in the run game. And I said, if this is the group that you're trotting out there, expect poor results, right? So what did you think was going to happen today, right? If this was the group that was out there. And then they started mixing and matching parts. It got really bad. So what this little period, and I'm kind of glad it's happening now. This little period here from day 9 of training camp all the way to here at the joint practice, what this has done is it shined a very bright light on the lack of depth we have on the offensive line. And what it's also doing is it's forcing guys into some uncomfortable positions. And remember, the coaching staff and some of the players have talked about being comfortable in uncomfortable positions. What can you do? Can you play? Can Chris Paul? I talked about this at Tulsa. He was a guard, a right tackle at Tulsa before being kicked in the guard as a pro. He was back at right tackle. He actually wasn't horrible. He wasn't great, but he was better than I thought he was going to be. I watched him in some one-on-one drills when the Jets coverage actually was showing the field. And it wasn't terrible. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible, right? I thought he would be awful. He got out there on some first-team reps. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Anyway, the first possession for the offense, Jaden Daniels in 11-on-11. So we're talking team period now. Jaden Daniels and the offense comes out, and they don't gain a yard. They try 2 run plays. Jaden Daniels throws a fade that's incomplete. They try 2 run plays. Finito. Nothing. All right. Or excuse me, 3 rushing plays, 1 pass, nothing. So, because there's no punts with this thing, right? When the offense gets out there, they're not, exchanging punts on 4th down. You're getting 4 chances to pick up 10 yards and continue to move the offense. So 3 runs, 1 yard, essentially barely a yard, and 1 incompletion, and the offense was off the field. Meanwhile, the defense started to settle in because they were struggling mightily in 7-on-7s with no pass rush. The secondary was getting cooked. So I see that comment, Joe Rockhead. It is sort of like complimenting someone's kid by saying that's a cute outfit. Yes, he wasn't horrible, but he tried really hard and he showed toughness. Sure, we'll go with that. Meanwhile, the defense settled in. All right, because it was rough in 7-on-7s with no pass rush to alter the quarterback. Although Garrett Wilson was giving Forbes work, he caught 3 or 4 passes in a row, including another touchdown, one in which Forbes got beat so badly, he stopped on the play. He stopped and put his head down as Garrett Wilson trotted into the end zone. So Forbes was giving up everything. They were picking on him, and Garrett was in mid-season form. However, the defense, like I said, they settled in, and Louie and Armstrong started to get pressure on the quarterback. They were exceptional. Both of them were outstanding. They were the 2 standouts defensively on the day. They really couldn't block Dorrance Armstrong, and Louie was just a force, right? So those 2 got busy with the pass rush to disrupt the Jets' offense and finally stop their drive, one of their drives. Louie put a nice hit on Breece Hall, a nice hit. Him and another linebacker combined on a hit that really, really got some oohs and ahs. Mariota actually moved the second offense solidly. He had a nice completion to Jamison Crowder over the middle of the football field. And then there was a drop by Cole Turner on a ball that was slightly behind him, but he should have caught it. You could maybe put a little bit of that on the wet conditions, but you want to see Cole Turner come away with that football, honestly speaking. But Mariota wasn't, half bad today, right? In the reps that he did have, there weren't a ton of second-team reps to be had today. So at one point, Trent Scott and Chris Paul were your first-team tackles. Let me repeat that one more time for those of you in the back. Let me speak up a little bit. Let me speak into the mic a little bit more direct so you can hear what I'm saying. At one point, Trent Scott was starting at left tackle and Chris Paul was starting at right tackle. So this is what Jaden Daniels had in front of him, okay? Throughout the day. I told you what the starting offensive line looked like. 3 of the 5 guys that we presume will be starters were missing. And then they just started playing musical chairs and just started shuffling the deck. All right, Chris Paul, let's see what you got. He hasn't been taking a ton of reps at tackle. He's taken a few. But to throw him out there with the first team tells you that's the depth situation that we have right now. It's not good. Not very good. Not very good. So Bryson Tremaine and Olamide Zaccheaus getting first-team reps. Let me stop you right there because Diami's making his team, people. Okay, let's just put that to rest. Olamide Zaccheaus is making his team, folks. Barring some kind of catastrophe. Here's what you need to start paying attention to. As someone that has played football, not a long time in my life, but I've been around it a lot. I know what it looks like when someone is moving up the depth chart. I know what it looks like when coaches are starting to take notice and they're starting to want to see what a guy can and can't do. Bryson Tremaine started on third-team offense. There's nothing wrong with any of the receivers. And granted, it was wet, and you don't want something happening to Terry or Jahan or any of those guys, but they were out there. There was no receivers out today. Yet Bryson Tremaine continues to make plays. And you know what happens when you continue to make plays as a player, no matter what position you're playing? You know what happens? The coaches start to take notice, and you know what they say? Hey, let's get him out there against better competition and see if he continues to do that. I'm not telling you Bryson Tremaine is going to make this team. I'm just telling you he's moving on up like the Jeffersons. We'll see what it looks like in the game, because he could be out there with the third string offense come Saturday, and all of that, we just throw it out of the window. But if he's out there with the second team offense, when Mariota first hits the field and they take Terry and Jahan and Diami, probably Diami, off the field, maybe Diami's still out there, maybe Olamide Zaccheaus is still out there. They probably should be out there. But when Marcus comes onto the field and they take Diami and Olamide Zaccheaus off the field at some point, those first two receivers, whomever they are, pay attention to those guys. I guarantee you Bryson Tremaine is going to be one of those guys, the first guys to get in the game. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, so at this point of practice, the first team offense has been out there twice. Okay. Jaden Daniels is 4 of 7 for 15 yards and a fumble to this point of practice. All right. Then he gets hot. This was his little hot stretch of practice. This was with Trent Scott at left tackle and Chris Paul at right tackle. He gets hot. He goes 3 of 3 to start this drive. He would go 3 of 4 ultimately on this drive. Out to Terry and 2 completions to Zach Ertz. And so now the ball's coming out. He's got a little bit of rhythm. He starts to feel good about himself. That was short-lived. Very short-lived. Meanwhile, the defense is really ramping it up now. Now they're stepping their shit up. After a very slow start defensively, they start to get into their bag. Dorrance Armstrong, again, wins again, and he would have had a sack on this particular play. All right. Then Emmanuel Forbes wakes up from the dead. I think he thought practice started at 11:30. All of a sudden now, Forbes is alive. He breaks up 2 consecutive passes in a row intended for Garrett Wilson, was all over him and covered him like a blanket. So in that moment, we saw something from Forbes that we didn't see really at all last year. Resolve. He got cooked early in practice, beaten like he stole something on 1 touchdown pass. To the point where he just said, F it. He got me. But he did not quit. He did not let those past failures alter the future performances. He broke up 2 passes in a row. And you know what? I'm proud of him for that. That's where we are with Forbes right now. We got to take the small victories, folks. Because there haven't been a lot of wins in the Emmanuel Forbes book right now. We're only on chapter 2, but there's been a lot of L's in the first chapter and a half. So when we get a win, we have to celebrate it. I like the fact that he was able to overcome a slow start and make some plays. Good for him. And then Louie got more pressure on the quarterback. Had a nice move that he put on Tyron Smith to get to Tyrod Taylor to force an incompletion and a throwaway, right? So the defense really started to ramp it up as they got settled into practice. So the offense trots back on the field. The first team offense goes back out on the field for the last time. And Jaden Daniels goes 0 of 4 on this particular sequence. Ertz has a ball punched out by C.J. Mosley, a ball that should have been caught, but great play by Mosley. You got to give credit where credit is due. He threw one over the head of Terry McLaurin. That ball sailed on him, probably slipped out of his hand, dealing with a wet ball. Diami had a drop of a ball that was slightly behind him, but he should have caught him. It was a good ball by all accounts, thrown by Jaden Daniels, and it should have been caught. Diami didn't come down with it. And then he had a throwaway due to pressure. So on the day, Jaden Daniels finished 7 of 15 for 25 yards, essentially on checkdown, screens, and underneath throws. We're going to get back to that. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. All right? We'll put a pin in that. So Ertz had a crazy catch in triple coverage, but it was negated by a Chris Paul penalty. So it didn't count. So that was the type of day it was, right? Let's get back to Jaden, and then we'll get to special teams to finish up the joint practice. Jaden going 7 of 15 for roughly 25 yards, 25 to 30 yards, somewhere in there, right? With a fumble. His first practice, his first action against a different team. Not bad, right? In the elements, with a backup offensive line that was in shambles and a really good Jets defense. He did not throw a pick. He didn't look terrible. The process wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either, right? Early on, you could tell, kind of deer in the headlights. He was holding on to the ball way too long on that first possession that I talked about, right? Or the first two possessions, rather. Kind of holding on to the ball a little bit too long. Seeing different looks from the Jets, kind of had to get settled in. Then he had that one possession where he got in rhythm, got the ball out of his hands when he threw 3 straight completions, and he started to get in a little bit of a rhythm. But again, I like the fact that Cliff understood the assignment, right? Because if this was Eric Bieniemy, he would have been dropping back, 5 to 7 step drops on every single play, taking deep shots, and, it would have been a train wreck behind this offensive line. But Cliff understood the assignment. Hey, we missing 3 of our 5 offensive linemen. Get it out of your hands, bro. Check downs, screens, and let's just get out of Dodge, okay? So everything was kind of short. Nothing really pushing it down the field, but I'm not mad at that. Not with the situation being what it was. I expect to see a little bit more in the game on Saturday. But again, I don't expect his numbers to be very far off from what we saw today, right? I don't expect him to have 15 attempts in the game on Saturday. More like 7 or 8. He'll probably be 3 of 7, 4 of 8, 5 of 8, 5 of 7 for 27 yards. That's what I'm expecting. I'm not expecting. I mean, it'd be great if he had a big completion. It'd be great if he, had some deep shots or a big chunk play to Ertz or Terry or something, or Jahan or something like that. But the likelihood is it'll be a bunch of underneath stuff. Him just getting acclimated. I remember watching C.J. Stroud last year. There wasn't a lot to it. C.J. Stroud played 2 possessions, went, 4 of 7 for 13 yards, or, 4 of 7 for, 19 yards. And that was that, right? Like you don't expect a lot in these preseason games from a rookie quarterback. You just don't want him to go out there and look overwhelmed, right? C.J. Stroud was running for his life last year in those preseason games. I remember it very vividly. So hopefully he's not running for his life on Saturday. But obviously this was not an ideal situation. And, being that this joint practice had inclement weather, that's not why they held all of these guys out, right? It wasn't because of that I think added to their decision-making process as to holding out Cosme and Wiley and Coleman. But the fact of the matter is, I think Coleman, and again, I don't know this for a fact, okay? I'm spitballing here. I don't know that Coleman is sick. I just don't think he has an injury, all right? I know Cosme was sick, and he was dealing with a sickness and an illness earlier in the week, and I just think Coleman might have gotten it. Whatever the case may be, right? I I think that added to them saying, you know what, let's not put you out there. But more importantly, there's no reason to put guys at risk if you don't have to in a practice setting in August, okay? I commend them for not putting any of those guys out there because at the end of the day, it's more important to be healthy than it is to be productive this time of the year. I think we can all agree on that. So I'm not tripping about today's practice. I'm more tripping about what I'm about to tell you right now because I thought the defense showed well, right? I get it. There was no Aaron Rodgers. Tyrod had some good plays against them. Garrett Wilson did his thing. I understand it. But the defensive line did what I wanted them to do, which was cause disruption and get after Tyrod and make things complicated for him. They did what they were supposed to do, okay? We still have question marks about this secondary, and that's going to continue, right? However, the offense, you can't really grade them. You have to grade them on a curve because of the situation with the offensive line. But there's no excuse for special teams. Let's get to special teams from today because there's no reason that special teams had to struggle. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Just a couple of updates on some of the rookies. Ben Sinnott and Luke McCaffrey had a couple of nice catches today. So the young fellas showed out, had a good performance today. That's good for their confidence heading into Saturday's game, their first NFL action of their career. So I'm looking forward to seeing both 82 and what is McCaffrey? He's not 12. I think he's 12. So I'm looking forward to seeing those young fellas get out there and mix it up. And can't wait to see what they look like on Saturday. So let's get to special teams. Starting out with the return game. The returners had a rough go of it catching the football. Obviously, inclement weather, very wet outside. I don't care, okay? You're going to play in at least one, possibly two games this season where the weather isn't ideal. Catch the damn football, okay? So we can't even do the simplest of things right on special teams, which is fielding the ball. At one point, Nikki Javala tweeted out, Washington looks horrible in all three phases right now. Now, she worded it a little bit differently, but it was to that effect. We were getting killed on defense. We were getting killed on offense, and the special teams couldn't even catch the damn ball. Okay? So it was a shit show at one point. Now the defense turned it around and cleaned up their act. The offense had its moments. The special teams was abysmal today. I am afraid right now. I've been talking to you all camp long about special teams and how I am not comfortable with what things are going on with the special teams unit. And this is continuing. This is why they brought in Byron Pringle, right? Because they're not confident. I told you when they brought in Byron Pringle, that's not good because that means they're not sure what the hell they have and they haven't seen anybody take the bull by the horns and say, hey, I got it on special teams. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. That's on punts and kickoffs. So Austin Eckler, just so you know, was out there first on kickoffs. But again, I don't really know what to make. I guess we will see on Saturday now, won't we? We'll get to see what's going on Saturday. Hold on. We got some maintenance going on outside. I'm going to mute my mic for a second. All right. So now things are go from bad to worse on special teams. I told you I have zero confidence in either one of the kickers we have in house. I don't know. So Ramiz Ahmed, for him, I just don't know him. He's a funny looking to me, right? So I don't have anything to go off of. So at this point, I'm uncomfortable because I don't know you. It's that simple, right? As a human being, we are more comfortable in settings that we're familiar with, and we are uncomfortable with the unknown. He's an unknown commodity, so I don't trust you. And you're not helping me because you're not going out and taking care of business. So you're making me even more uneasy, okay? And then Riley Patterson, I know this guy. And even though the numbers suggest he's not a bad kicker, I don't trust him. I don't care. I don't trust him. I don't care. I don't trust him. And he's showing me why I don't trust him. Ramiz Ahmed went 2 of 5 today in the kicking department. Missed 3 in a row, all from 40 and above. Riley Patterson went 3 of 5 today. Missed 2 in a row, both from 40 and above. So again, the kicking competition has been updated, and both kickers are now 19 of 25 in the kicking competition in one of the most mid kicking competitions known to mankind. I pray that one veteran kicker with chops is released at some point here sooner rather than later, that they enter into the mix and they cut one of these kickers and they give another guy an opportunity. You can cut with it. You can cut with whichever you like. Yeah, at this point, I really don't give a shit. Cut Ramiz, cut Riley. Just give me another option, please. Okay. Now, again, to be fair, not ideal kicking situations. Guess what? You're going to be kicking in less than ideal kicking situations in the season. Make the damn kicks. So, I'm just going to tell you like this. Uneven practice, much of it to be expected from the offensive side because we knew there was a chance that the offensive line would be compromised. Not tripping about anything there. Defensively, slow start, picked it up. Louie looked good. Dorrance Armstrong looked good. Forbes finally made some plays towards the end. I'm satisfied, okay? I'm satisfied. Special teams has me shook. Because if you're going to be in close ball games, and I don't think anybody here should be thinking that this offense is going to be lighting up the scoreboard, right? So if you're still concerned about winning games close, you better be able to make your kicks, extra points and field goals. I'm not sure. And you better not be a sieve on returns either. Again, a lot of time between now and the start of the season. I'm not going to overreact, but I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I've been nervous. I've been consistent this entire offseason. I told you I'm not that concerned with the offensive line. Now I'm going to throw this extra caveat in, as long as they're healthy, because as we see, the depth behind what we have on our front line, but this is the entire roster though. Okay. When you're in the position that we're in and you're in the portion of the process that we're in, which is the ground floor, this is the first year of the recalibration as they find their north. You're not going to have great depth. The key to survival when you're just starting out is to stay healthy, stay as healthy as possible, because the depth is not pretty. And in most instances, it's not there. Okay. So I think the line is going to be fine. Hence, I think the offense is going to be fine. I think they might get off to a slow start this season. I wouldn't be shocked by that. But they'll pick it up as the season goes along. I think this defense is going to be really good. I'm not moving off of that spot. I do have concerns about the cornerback position, but I still think this pressure that they're going to create is going to allow these corners to be much better, and they're going to be fine. It's special teams that I've told you this entire time I'm nervous about, and they have not quelled any of my nervousness. As a matter of fact, they've amplified it. God damn you, Brandon McManus. You bastard. You stinking ass bastard. We shouldn't be in this predicament, but we are because of you. Anyway, I digress. So let's get to the comment section before I cut you guys loose. JLG will start us off. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. JLG writes, the Jets have indoor and outdoor facilities. Did they do 11 on 11 indoors? No. The entire practice took place outside. I said this on X early this morning because I had a feeling that this would happen. And I told you this earlier when Rio asked me, you think they go inside? And John Keim even hinted at the fact that they may go inside. He didn't say they would, but he said the Jets have really good indoor facilities. I said, I don't think they're going to utilize them, though, unless it's thunderstorming outside. And it did it. They're not going inside because it's football. And if you've ever played football, then you know. I've been in practices, I've been in games where it was a torrential downpour. And we still played the game. You couldn't even see your feet because it was so much water. You were standing in mud, and we still played the game. There have been practices where I'm standing on the sideline because I'm not getting any run, and I'm soaked, and I can't even move. I'm so wet. And we didn't go inside. If it's thunderstorming, you go in the gym, right? And you do essentially a walkthrough in the gym. But if it's not thunderstorming outside, get your ass outside and practice. So, no, they didn't go inside. They stayed outside for the entire practice. Indie drills, 7-on-7, 11-on-11, all took place outside. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Red Wing 01 writes, I am certain Diami will make it and hopefully make an impact. And Crowder is less safe than I thought. Got 4 to 5 guys with legit shot at last 2 spots. I feel like there are 5 spots spoken for with Olamide Zaccheaus. But to your point, even if you don't want to include Olamide Zaccheaus in that, and I told you, I put Diami with the rest of the first 3 guys that are absolute locks. I put Diami in that category where it's 100% he's making this roster. I put Olamide at 85 to 90. So I feel just almost as confident of him making the roster as I do the rest of them. But I can't put him at 100% like the rest of those guys. But he feels just as safe to me. I think you've got about 4 or 5 guys battling for one spot. I think it's Crowder and Bryson Tremaine right now leading that pack, with Crowder having an edge over him. And I won't even call it slight. I think Crowder's out in front of him because of his punt return ability. But I feel like that gap on a daily basis is closing. But I still think it's Crowder's job to lose. I think they like Tremaine, and all he's doing right now is positioning himself to be the first man off the practice squad should something go awry, like an injury takes place or something like that. He's positioning himself to be the first guy that they call up off the practice squad right now is Bryson Tremaine. But we'll see, right? These preseason games are going to be huge for the receivers, more so than any other position, maybe corner as well, and then the offensive line too. But specifically knowing that there's a spot available. Same thing with that 5th cornerback spot. I think the preseason is going to go a long way in determining who does what and lands where, right? So Crowder has some work to do. If Crowder has one good game returning punts, he's going to probably solidify himself as a receiver on this roster. But if they're not even putting him back there on punts during the preseason games, like if he doesn't even get an attempt, he ain't making his team. I still contend Jamison Crowder's best path and probably only path to making this roster is by being the punt returner, the primary punt returner. If he's not doing that, I just don't know if there's a roster spot with his name on it. So, and I can't imagine him not being back there on punts. But on the unofficial Deppy, was he even listed as a punt returner? Let me check real quick. I don't recall him even being listed as one of the punt returners on the unofficial Deppy for special teams. Let me take a look. Yeah, he was the primary punt returner. So yeah, he is the primary. So I would assume he'll be the first guy back out there when we get to Saturday. And all he's got to do is make one guy miss and get 8 or 9 yards on a punt. And I think his job could be solidified here, right? We'll see what happens. Red Wing 01, thank you for being a member for 21 months, almost at that 2-year threshold, right? He writes, "You've been saying it a while, but now I see it. Told you, Diami's making his team, and I'm going to put Olamide in that same category, right?" J Sauer 90. Been a member for 31 months. Really appreciate you, J Sauer 90. Is it possible Tremaine could be a gym like Terry? Don't go that far. Okay, don't go that far. I'd liken Bryson Tremaine to more of Cam Sims. Look at him from that lens and in that vein, okay? Less of a, big time playmaking starting receiver in this league, more of a big target that was undrafted that can offer you some help as a third, fourth, fifth option at receiver. Think of it more in that light for him. You got to make the team first. Got to make, and this is a much different environment and climate than the one Cam Sims made the team on in 2020, right? Where we had nothing at receiver. So keep that in mind as well. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Door Gunner writes, "Yeah, warming up my kicking leg, Lou. I told you, keep that thing warm. Keep it warm, man. Hey, stretch. Keep stretching. I know you're getting up there age-wise, so we don't want no hammies being pulled or none of that shit, but keep it warm. We may be calling to the bullpen week 1 against Tampa. All right? Maybe calling to the bullpen, depending on what they do the rest of this offseason, rest of training camp, rest of the preseason, and whether they bring in another kicker or not. We may be calling to the bullpen. Let me get Door Gunner out here, man. So stay ready. Stay ready. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, "We are rebuilding. Give me Tremaine over Crowder." But remember, Crowder offers you something right now that you're not sure if anybody else offers you, which is the ability to field a punt and return a punt. The most important factor in punt return game is catching the punt, fielding it. You remember, when Crowder was here the first time, the reason he got pushed out of the door is because he lost his confidence on punt returns. He couldn't even catch the damn ball back there. We brought him back, 2.0 version, and JC Ice has been really steady back there. So that's the first thing, is he offers you something that right now you can't get anywhere else on the roster, or at least you don't feel as confident getting it somewhere else on the roster. So until you find a replacement for Crowder as a punt returner, you can't just throw him by the wayside. So if Crowder is your primary punt returner, he's on this roster. There is a purpose that he serves. He has value. He's on this roster. If Crowder is not returning punts, then you can say, Bryson Tremaine, come on down, right? But we're not there yet. And again, I don't know if we'll get there. It feels like Crowder is going to be our primary punt returner. I'd love to see them throw Jahan back there in the preseason once or twice just to see what he can do. But, he did it in college. How interested is he in doing it in the NFL? It's different in college versus the NFL. We'll see. I'd love to see them trot him out there once or twice. And you know what? It'll be interesting to see what they do from a special team standpoint with returns and things of that nature during the preseason, because we have no solidified kickoff return man. So I would assume they're going to put multiple guys back there to give everybody an opportunity. And I would assume they would do the same thing with punts, right? I'd love to see Jahan get out there. I'd love to see Jamison Crowder get out there. They've been talking about Mike Samer still. I'd love to see him get back there and field a punt or two. And anybody else that you've been trotting back there, Kaz Allen, I'd love to see all of that take place. But we'll see what they, ultimately do and how they handle the special teams responsibilities in the game on Sunday. Because honestly, we can talk about practice all day, but these preseason games for special teams, even the kickers, we can sit here and talk about Ramiz Ahmed going 2 of 5 today in inclement weather and Riley Patterson going 3 of 5 in inclement weather, and overall, both of them going 19 of 25 in practice. But that's practice, not a game, but practice. They may be gamers. Both of them may be gamers. I know Riley Patterson can kick field goals in an actual NFL game. All right. His overall field goal percentage says so at 87% career. So I'm not as concerned, right? Do it in the game and you may be able to change my mind, right? I don't know Ramiz Ahmed. I don't know what he does in a game situation because he's never kicked a field goal in an NFL game before. He might be a gamer too, for all I know. My gut and my instincts tells me, nah, not really. He is who he is, but we'll see. The game is going to go a long way in determining a lot for this team. And these joint practices, while they're cool, the games are still going to have a lot of weight attached to them, right? And I think this joint practice with the Jets kind of proved that for me, even though the weather didn't cooperate. And then we just happened to have bad luck in not only the weather being, poor, but having guys be sick and out for various reasons during the joint practice too. That didn't help at all. So anyway, I digress. John Perez, my guy, JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, John Perez, thank you for being a member of the MOBB, writes, saw Forbes was really bad today. I don't know, man. That pick looks like a massive fail so far. He was up and down, a lot more downs than ups, but he finished the practice strong with a couple of pass breakups on Garrett Wilson. So there's that. He showed some mental toughness that he lacked a season ago. So I'm not giving up on Forbes yet, but I thought it then when they made the pick that they got the wrong guy. I thought Christian Gonzalez was the best corner in that year's draft class. And so far, he has done nothing to change my mind. But I'm not going to quit on the kid, 1 year in essentially to his career. It's so easy for you to be able to quit on a young player early in their careers when they haven't played well, right? It's easy. That's the easy thing to do. The hard thing is to stick with him and continue to give him an opportunity to show what he's capable of. The easy thing to do is quit. A lot of y'all like to do that. A lot of y'all like to do the easy thing, which is to quit. The hard thing to do is to stick by the kid and keep giving him opportunities, because what alternatives do you really have? They didn't spend the first round pick on this kid, but he's here. You spent the first round pick on him. Just keep throwing him out there and see if the light bulb comes on eventually, right? I was listening to Nick Saban on Hard Knocks with the Chicago Bears, and he said, I think there's similarities here. He said, human nature is to be average. Most people don't strive for greatness. There are the select few that are super talented and they want to be great and they check all the boxes. They're self-motivated, they're super talented, and they want to get after it and they want to be great. He said, but those guys are very few and far between. Most people, even if they're super talented, want to be average. And as coaches, you got to push those players to be great. You got to push players to want to be great. It's the same thing with fan bases. It's human nature to want to quit on a player when he hasn't shown you anything after one season. It didn't always used to be that way. You guys are different animals, man. Your level of patience is zero. Growing up, you draft a guy in the first round, you wouldn't even start criticizing him until year 3, right? Now, there were players back in the day, Heath Schuler, Desmond Howard, that we drafted, and immediately you went, no, that guy sucks. But even Heath Schuler, you waited 2 years before you went, okay, this guy is an absolute bust, and we moved on to Gus Frerotte, right? I'm just telling you to be patient with Forbes. It's a new staff. It's a new system. Let's just see what he's got. This was not a great start, but guess what? This was to be expected. Garrett Wilson is really good. Okay? He's really good. So I'm not tripping. At the end of the day, Forbes may ultimately be a B word. And I'm not talking about a bitch. But I'm not going to throw that on that young man. I'm not going to do that. Not now. I still believe in Emmanuel Forbes and his abilities. And he didn't forget how to play football. And I think this scheme, if we're getting pressure on the quarterback and the ball's coming out quick, I think he's going to be a huge beneficiary. And some of you may be changing your tune on Emmanuel Forbes at some point this season. And if he's not good and he doesn't turn out to be good and the light bulb never comes on, we'll just throw him in the pile with the rest of the Phil Rivera picks. That pile is very high, right? And we'll just throw him at the top of the pile. Would you be surprised? How many of those Ronald Rivera picks have worked out for us? You wouldn't be surprised. But I'm not doing that yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Frankie, yo. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Frankie, yo, writes, Forbes quitting on the field. We can't quit on him. It's like you with the boys series. I have seen some obscene things I cannot forgive. So on that play that you're referring to, he was beat bad. Like, I'll give you an example from something that happened to me in my life. So I told y'all I was a baseball player. I wasn't a football guy. So I didn't get a ton of run as a football player. But I got in this one game. And I really felt like if I would have gotten more opportunities, I could have been a beast receiver. Because I just started playing football. I didn't play as a kid. So I was really learning on the fly. So one of my specialties was the deep post. Anything in breaking, you couldn't cover me. Okay. Slant, post, dig, you had no chance. Because I was going to set you up. I was going to give you some dandruff, some head and shoulders, and then I was going to break you off. I was breaking the starting corners off in practice all the time. They couldn't cover me. So I get in a game, I run the deep post, and I beat the corner bad. I'm talking about, I got about 5 yards of separation on this chump. And this dude was a speedster. I cooked him. The quarterback throws me the ball, and he overshoots me by about 3 to 5 yards. I see it in the air. I know I got no shot. And I at the end of the play, as it's sailing over my head, I start to deaccelerate because I know I can't catch it. Well, my coach, the quarterback, they all get pissed off at me because I didn't dive for the ball. Dive for what? Dive for what? So I can end up 2 yards shy of a pass that was 5 yards over my head? If that's going to make you feel better, sure, I could have dove. For what? Now, some of you can look at it one way. I looked at it as I wasn't going to catch the football. Nobody had a better perspective of that ball than I did. It was a bad pass. He hits me in the money. He hits me in stride on the money. I walk in the end zone. Forbes was beat. I love guys who are busting their ass on a play to try to get to a guy that they know they're not going to catch. That's great. But you know what? I don't think any differently of the guy that busts his ass that still ends up 3 yards short of a guy that runs in the end zone on a 56-yard catch, of the guy that stops at the 12-yard line knowing I'm not going to catch him. They're the same to me. Neither one of them got to the guy. It's the same thing. One busted his ass, didn't do shit. The other said, I got cooked. I'm not going to be able to do shit. It's the same difference, right? We're splitting hairs. He got beat so bad on that play, he wasn't catching Garrett Wilson, and he knew it. I don't love him dropping his head, but I mean, if we're reading body language, that's not good. But he got beat and he wasn't going to catch him. You can keep running if you'd like. Or you can say, you know what? I'm going to conserve my energy. I'm going to be out here for a while. I'll get him next time. I'm not going to kill him for that. Is that bad body language? Yes, it is. You'd like to see him continue to, and maybe they get on him in the film session and say, hey, we don't want that shit, right? You got beat on the play. You keep busting your ass until the whistle, right? Who knows what happens? He could drop the ball in the end zone before he gets in. You could recover it. We don't want you to stop running on the play. I get that. Totally get it. Anything could happen, right? But the likelihood is he's gonna jaunt into the end zone, celebrate. That's what's gonna more likely than not happen. So I get it. I understand you want to see him bust his ass. I get it. You don't want to see him dropping his head, all that good stuff. Me neither. Me neither. But he got cooked. He got cooked. One practice. That's it. No need to overreact. Give you the old Aaron Rodgers cheer. RELAX. Relax. Just relax. We good. I want to see this preseason game. Now I'm even more invested in this first preseason game versus the Jets. I'm even more, because I said this in a tweet. There are going to be takeaways from this practice, and there were. And this is going to be an evaluation tool for the coaching staff, and it should be. And guys got some good work out there. You know, I listened to Mikey Samer still talk about, hey, they were running some good route concepts, man. We got a good look at some different stuff that we hadn't seen this camp so far. So it was good work for us. All of that is great. But it was wet. It was nasty. You had no offensive linemen really out there to speak of. And so practice was what it was. This game, totally different set of circumstances. Granted, we won't see the starters a ton. We will see the starters. And I expect them to look better. I have no idea what to expect from special teams, but I'll be looking for that too. So anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on this installment of Training Camp Confidential, Training Camp with the Washington Commanders, joint practice versus the New York Jets. It was a very much like day 10, that final practice at Ashburn before they headed up to Jersey. Very uneven, but you can understand why. A lot of circumstances impacting the practice. At the end of the day, we still have a game to look forward to tomorrow or Saturday. And I think I'm more inclined to be locked into the game now because of how practice went than I was maybe 24 hours ago, where I was like, yeah, a lot more emphasis put on the practice because the starters will be out there more, this, that, and the third. Weather, missing a lot of starters. And I feel good about the defense. Offense, I really feel like they get it incomplete because of the circumstances. Defense, I say like a B- performance today. Feel good about them. Special teams, D, right? D. I need to see more. So anyway, I digress. You guys get out of here. If there's more audio from players and things of that nature that we have access to, I may come back a little bit later on, break down Dan Quinn's press conference. He spoke before practice. And I know there were scrums, like I said, media scrums with the players. If, you know, they put those up on the team website or on the YouTube channel, and there's enough of it, then we'll come back and we'll, you know, break that down. But if not, we'll save it for another day, right? It's not a big deal. This was the big portion of the day. This was the meat and potatoes, and we nailed that. So I'll see you guys later. I'll be live tonight for Panthers and Patriots. And I may talk a little bit about Giants Lions, although I don't think there's going to be a lot there that we'll be able to glean from that game, because I don't anticipate, with them having multiple joint practices this week against one another, I don't think we're going to see either team play their starters in the game. The Lions definitely won't put their starters out there, and I anticipate the Giants won't put theirs out there either. So the likelihood is you won't get a lot from that game. But on the other side, I think the Panthers will put some of their starters. They're not putting Bryce Young out there, so a little disappointed in that. But I expect to see Drake May out there for the Patriots. If they don't put him out there, I'll be very disappointed. So I'll be live after that game later on tonight. But in any event, you guys have a good one. Take care. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Joint practice 1 in the books. Mixed bag. Don't overreact. We're fine. We're fine. See you next time.